Defendant's contact list. Bradford, what do we make of this?
Not much.
Really? Not much?
Yeah, so this happens all the time in like every single case. They only make a big deal about it in this case. So the third party calling, when I can tell you in my 30 years, 28 years of practice, third party calling has been done in probably 90% of the cases that I have. In fact, sometimes third party calling to me. So what they would do is they'd get one of their friends on the line, and then that friend would then third party me in, and I always have to tell them, hey, this is an attorney-client privilege. You got a third party on the line, and when you have a third party on the line, anything we say is not attorney-client privilege. Sometimes, and this was really funny, I had a murder case in Tampa where they third party me in. So it was the defendant calling his friend and his friend calling me, and I knew that the prosecutor was listening, and I didn't.
Oh, I remember that.
I didn't say.
Yeah.
And then I said, you know, hey, listen, we got evidence that are going to blow the doors off of them. And I knew she was listening, and I wanted to point to my client. And then we went to the court, and she's like, oh, I heard this conversation with Mr. Cohn. It wasn't attorney-client, and he's going to blow our doors off with this new evidence. I want to see this new evidence. And, of course, we didn't have that new evidence. Yeah. So the third party, I just wanted to prove that the prosecutors, the smart prosecutors, especially in the Southern District of New York, are listening to every single phone call that you make. That's number one. Number two is the thing about using other inmates' numbers. That happens a lot too, because
them getting paid for it. Them getting paid to use it.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, that happens all the time.
And again, the allegation is not only that, but also contacting people we're not on his contact list.
Yeah, because some people don't want to be on your contact list. Some people don't want to be on the government's contact, because once you're on the contact list, the government now has your name, your phone number. They could tap your phone. A lot of people don't want to be on contact lists. So because of that, they might use, Bob Smith's PAC number and to call their friend, but they don't understand. It goes by the phone number, right? So like if I'm calling from Bob Smith's PAC number, they're looking for the phone number that I'm calling. They're not looking for Sean Combs. So if my number is 555-1212, they could just do a search. Who has called this phone number in the past month? And that's what they do. And then they realize, oh, wait a minute, why is Bob Smith calling this phone number? And then they go back and they have the conversation.
Yeah.
Really what is the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from this is that when you first get a client, and clients might not listen to you, and he might not be listening to his attorney, and his attorney is a very good attorney. He might have told him this at the very beginning. But at the very beginning of cases, you have to tell them every phone call is recorded. Don't think that you're playing cute when you have PAC numbers and you try to call someone else. They're going to find out. And that's just the way that it is, especially in the feds. So I don't take much of it unless those phone calls are really damning.
By the way, we are not trying to miss any major development in the Sean Combs case like these legal filings. We got you covered. And I got to call out one of our incredible sponsors who is their support helps us and more. Here's the thing. If you should get hurt, America's largest law dollars in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, $6.8 million in New York, and all of these mines are considerably higher than the highest insurance offers in these cases. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at com/LC sidebar. Well, what about, they say, quote, the defendant also uses a non-authorized third-party messaging service called Contact Me ASAP to obscure his communications. The defendant appears to be using two Contact Me ASAP accounts. First, the defendant's BOP contact list includes a particular email address assigned to the defendant's son, which does not appear to be an account owned by the defendant's son, but instead appears to be an email address connected to Contact Me ASAP. Second, the defendant appears to be using another inmate's Contact Me ASAP account, primarily using email one. The defendant has exchanged hundreds of text messages via Contact Me ASAP with dozens of individuals, including attorneys and individuals who are not on the defendant's contact list. So any issue there?
Again, if he's contacting his attorneys, it's usually, it always is attorney-client privilege, unless there's a third party involved. Some people don't feel comfortable talking to their attorneys on jail calls. Even though they know they're not supposed to be listening to those calls, I can tell you they do listen to some of those phone calls. They're not supposed to. They might not use it in a court of law, but a lot of times you find that they oh, sorry, by accident, I didn't realize it was his attorney until I was 3 minutes in.
Right.
So I don't take much of that unless, like I said, unless they have some damning evidence that he is doing something crazy on those phone calls or he's doing something crazy on that application. Other than that, just using it.
I guess the counter argument would be, putting aside what the content is, we'll get to that. If he's breaking the rules of the prison, right? Excuse me, not the prison. If he's breaking the rules of the detention center, should he be on the outside? Is he going to flout the rules of his bail? That would be the argument.
Yeah, I mean that's a better argument, but the problem is that, you know, quote unquote breaking the rules by making phone calls and things of that nature, unless those phone calls are the prohibited thing. Like if I am calling a witness directly and having direct witness contact by using this kind of obscure messaging and things of that nature, yeah, 100%.
Okay.
But I think just because he uses third-party calls, that's like, you know, like I said, 99% of the cases do that.
Okay, so let me. There's just so much to get to, so I want to get through everything with you. So the prosecutors have indicated that they will produce these calls to Combs and his lawyers through a filter team prior to what is a scheduled bail hearing on November 22nd, 2024. We're going to be covering that on Long Prime. But then they write this: on multiple calls, often using the PAC numbers of other inmates, the defendant is explicit about his intention to use public statements to alter public perception. And the defendant leaves no doubt that the narrative he wants to leave is the potential jury pool's perception of this criminal proceeding. And examples of these efforts, they say, are plentiful. And then they black out and they redact all of those examples. First, Bradford, why the redactions?
Well, the redactions probably because they don't want it to then make it public what his position is. Like, I didn't do it. This one witness, she did X, Y, Z. I'm sure that there's things in there that the government doesn't want the public to hear because the government has their narrow view of what's going on, right? And whenever the defendant then wants to address that narrow view and put out his own statement or address it in a different way, they want to curtail that because they have a certain way to look at a case. They don't want anyone looking at it differently. I find this to be the most ironic thing. It's like it's hypocrisy at its best because although the New York Southern District office does not themselves leak things often, they have in the past, but in this case, I don't think there's any evidence that they leaked anything. They also know that other individuals are leaking things that help their case, and they're not curtailing it. Like the video of Cassie was certainly leaked. My guess is it was her attorney who leaked it. I don't know for sure, but I would guess that it would be her attorney who leaked that video because that video was in their possession, and that video is something that helps her case to say, hey, I'm not a defendant. I'm a victim here. I will guarantee that the government knew that video was in their possession and that the government knew that some individual was leaking that. And they could have found out who leaked it, but they don't care because it helps their case.
That's what Combs' attorneys have been saying. Yeah, that's what Combs' attorneys have been saying.